What do you think of the CIA? I mean, do we need it? Do we need the CIA?
No, I don't think so. There's so much redundancy in intelligence. Well, I'm going to give you a two-part answer. First of all, there's so much redundancy in intelligence. We really don't need a CIA. The Pentagon has an organization called Defense Human Services. Human meaning human intelligence. They recruit spies to steal secrets. Well, guess what? That's exactly what the CIA does. So you've got DoD doing the same thing. You've got the State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research and the Defense Department's Defense Intelligence Agency doing analysis. Exactly what the CIA's Directorate of Intelligence does. So there's redundancy there. You have NSA that's doing all of the intercepts. You've got DARPA that's doing all the futuristic, cool scientific inventions and stuff like that. You have myriad organizations that are doing simpler things like bugs or disguises or forgeries or any of the stuff that a CIA officer needs to do on a day-to-day basis. So when you've got multiple organizations all doing exactly the same thing, isn't that kind of a waste of money and manpower? And
Hmm.
secondly, and this is more important, the CIA has gotten literally every major global development wrong since 1947. From the creation of the Berlin Wall, through the Suez Crisis, through the Vietnam War, and the fall of the Iranian government and the loss of the Shah of Iran, through Iran Contra and missing 9/11 and everything in between. They just got it wrong. So why would we even want to keep going? This gigantic multi-billion dollar organization that doesn't really provide anything to the national security. I worked for Ambassador John Negroponte when I was at the United Nations in New York more than 20 years ago. He later went on to become the director of national intelligence, and as the ambassador to the UN, he was in a quasi cabinet level position, and so he was allowed to receive a PDB briefing every day. And he once told me that not one single time did the president's daily brief tell him something that the Washington Post and the New York Times didn't tell him an hour earlier. Do we really need it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Sad.
interesting. So interesting. So that's kind of the interesting, I think the most interesting part of what you just said is I think a lot of people would be cheering and saying, all right, the CIA is gone. Let's say Trump comes out and says, we're going to get rid of this. We don't need it. We're going to get rid of the
Yeah.
CIA.
Right.
People would be cheering, saying, all right, it's a new day. It's a new dawn. And really, it's like, no, they've just now, the spies are
No.
everywhere else. They just move the
Yeah, that's
spies
right.
around.
They
That's
just
all they
divide them
did.
up, divide them up, and send them someplace else. That's it.
Yeah. So it wouldn't actually end anything. I mean, nothing would change if we got rid of the
No.
CIA, is what you're saying.
George Washington once said that gentlemen do not read other gentlemen's mail. And so we didn't have an intelligence organization in our country until the passage of the National Security Act of 1947. And even then, it was almost blocked because it was opposed by J. Edgar Hoover. It was only because President Truman lied to Hoover and said to Hoover, no, no, you need to support this passage because the CIA is going to be a division of the FBI. It was a clear lie, but Hoover
Hmm.
believed it. And he said, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to be the director of both the FBI and the CIA, then okay, I'll lift my objection. And it passed. And then Truman was like, ha, fooled ya. And the CIA and the FBI have been at war ever since.
Yeah. And what was the whole point of the CIA? It was to spy on the Russians, right? Is that what the
Yeah,
initial?
that's exactly right. It was to spy on the Russians.
Yeah.
Jim Pavitt, he was the deputy director for operations for whom I worked when I was a briefer. And he used to say the same very simple thing all the time. And I repeat it all the time now in interviews because it's so true. The job of the CIA is to recruit spies to steal secrets and to analyze those secrets to provide the policymaker with the best informed analysis.
Hmm.
Now, they often fail at that, but that's the whole reason at its root to have a CIA.
So the CIA, the spies themselves are not actual spies. they're recruiting other spies in other countries to do the spying. Is that what?
Yeah, you know, yeah, we all have these wonderful stories that we like to tell once we leave about the cool stuff we've done. But the truth of the matter is, if you've got blonde hair and blue eyes, you're not going to infiltrate Al Qaeda, right? You're going to have
Right.
to
Right.
recruit, you're going to have to recruit some guy from Yemen or from
Yeah.
Egypt to do it for you. Yeah, that's really how it works. You
Hmm.
recruit the spies to steal the secrets for you.
My favorite family member, he's passed away now, but he was my great uncle and my grandmother's brother. And he was in the CIA. He was one of the very earliest first guys in the
Ooh,
CIA. He never
right.
said he wasn't, we found out, especially later after he died, that I think then it's like no longer, it's kind of like the family secret that's not really that secret sort of a thing. Like we all knew
Right.
Uncle Alton was in the CIA kind of a thing.
Right.
And he would just disappear for weeks on end and then come back with like random Russian people. And
Oh yeah.
like, you know,
Oh yeah. You can
I mean,
say
it's a
that
little bit of an
again.
exaggeration, but it was like that. I mean, he would disappear for weeks on end, and my grandma's like, "Oh, he's off Russia again or something. The CIA, and he's involved in all that stuff." And
Oh, I
and
can't tell you
but yeah,
how many times I went on missions and I was instructed to throw away all of my money before I left the country because I couldn't risk anybody seeing like, whoa, where you got money from XYZ country? What were you doing there? You can't risk that.
oh
So at the airport, just as I was getting ready to, board the plane, which was oftentimes in a fake passport from some other country, so that there's literally no record of me having been in that country. I'd have to throw
yeah,
away all my money and all my receipts. Yeah,
wow. Were you
yeah,
able to tell people you were in the CIA when you were in it?
no.
So what do you guys say? I mean, he said his cover was always that he worked for NASA. I think is what he
That's a
said.
good cover.
I think he
That's
said,
a good cover.
yeah, he's like, I work for NASA. Yeah.
Mine was the State Department. I would just say State Department. And if people pressed, I would say, it's really boring. I'm involved in
That's what he
training and
would say.
sometimes,
Are you
yeah,
guys trained
training.
to say that? Because that's literally what he would say. It's
Yes.
really boring. I just do paperwork. I,
That's it. You
that's what
want to
he'd
make
say.
the response, yeah, you want to make the response so boring that people don't follow up. I'll tell you what, I was on a plane once from Milan to Sofia, Bulgaria, and I never talk to people on planes. I just listen to music or read a book or whatever. And I'm sitting next to this enormous guy, and he would not shut his mouth for the whole doggone flight. And he kept talking and talking, and finally he says, "So what do you do for a living?" And I said, I'm a businessman. Oh, what kind of business are you in? I said, I import, export, you know. Oh, what do you import and export? Whatever is going to make me some money. I said, whatever it is, I can get a deal on. Oh, like what? He says. And he just wouldn't stop. So I said, look, I smuggle women and cigarettes from Eastern Europe. You happy now? And
And that was
he goes
actually
like this.
true because
Yeah, right. It pretty much. No, it wasn't true. I and he goes, well, I don't approve. I said, well, I didn't ask your approval, did I? Now, how about shut the fuck up? And then he
oh
didn't say a
jeez.
word the rest of the flight. So
Oh.
sometimes that's what you have to do.
Now
Yeah,
I know if somebody starts giving me vague answers, I'll be like, "Oh, CIA. Okay, got it."
yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah, training and imports and yeah, we do a lot of
Paperwork.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, interesting, interesting. But so yeah, I guess that's unfortunate to know that if we got rid of it, it doesn't really go away. It just shifts. It just
yeah.
morphs
It
into a
doesn't.
different agency. I think that
That's right.
because a lot of us want to see that power, that kind of clandestine power. We've got to bring the power back to the
Diluted.
people.
We've got to.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah, we've
how
got
do
to.
how
And
do you
you know
think
how
we
we
do
do
that?
that? We
Yeah,
do
how?
that with real oversight committees. We've got the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which for a brief period from 1975 to about 1986 were actual real oversight committees telling the CIA, no, you can't do that. That's a violation of international law. And now the committees really are little more than cheerleaders for the CIA. And I'll give you an example. Um, I went to prison for 23 months after blowing the whistle on the CIA's torture program. And when I got out of prison, I was invited to a dinner at the Greek ambassador's residence. And Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, the Democrat of Oregon, was at the dinner. And he came up to me and he said, "Hey, welcome home. So glad to hear that you're out. Blah, blah, blah. You did this brave thing." And I said, "Senator, with all due respect, I got to tell you, I actually expected a little bit more support from you." And he got angry and he said, "Look, it took all my energy just to not lose my security clearance." And I thought, "Oh, you're afraid of them. You're not overseeing them. You're afraid of them." Well, if he's the only one on the Senate Intelligence Committee who's viewed by the media as, the one guy who's going to stand up to the agency, what does that say about all the other members of the Senate Intelligence Committee? Not to even mention the House Intelligence Committee. They're all cheerleaders. We need real people. We need Daniel Patrick Moynihan to come back to life, or Frank Church, or Ted Kennedy, who had the guts to stand up to these guys. And those members of Congress just don't exist anymore.
Thanks for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show. If you want to watch the full show, visit KimIversonShow.com. The show airs every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Again, it's KimIversonShow.com. See you there.